All right, good evening and welcome from beautiful Canterbury, New Hampshire. Welcome to the shop. Come on in and have a seat, virtually, if you ain't already sitting. But anyway, I'm really glad to have you here and to visit with me a little bit. And tonight is kind of a special night. We're going to kind of reflect on what's been great and some things that we feel a lot of gratitude for personally, the camera lady and I. Tonight is the 100th episode of Shop Night Live. We began our first one in March. What was the date? March
7th, 2019.
2019. And at first we didn't go every week. We went every other week and for a little while, and then I guess by summertime we started every week, and so we're just reaching the 100th now. But we are just totally blown away by how this thing has taken shape. You know, the whole way this began has a lot to do with, with just this feeling that I was having in the shop, being a craftsman or a furniture maker for high-end customers, and doing intensive one-of-a-kind work for 25, 30 years. It was getting kind of isolating, to be honest with you. And I've had apprentices with me, but it was always really fun because I always had people around and doing things, and I had the enthusiasm of the clients. It was always a new design and something fresh to look forward to. And the peer group of the furniture masters, we'd show our work to each other, and all that was a great time. But then, I don't know, after the kids moved on and I was just out here, and I didn't have an apprentice at the time, and I was enjoying making things and teaching occasionally. I just started to feel isolated, and it was almost like this calling to, the best way I can say it is to open the doors. That's how kind of the message I was receiving, to just open the doors to what you're doing. And so that's what we did. We decided to turn on the video camera and just open up what we've been doing here. And so it's been an amazing ride to see all the new friendships we've made, and all of you, I'm getting a little choked up, how many friendships that have been made amongst you, and I just love reading the chat and all the things that, I didn't think I was going to get emotional, but all the things that we've enjoyed together. We've just seen, now the camera lady's getting emotional.
That's nothing new.
I know it's not. But all the things we've enjoyed together, with all the projects and experiences. But I just have a lot of gratitude, and I'm trying to focus as much as possible on that in my life, because I realize that's where really the joy is. No matter what I'm going through, or whatever, there's always something great, and you're really a big part of the gratitude that we have in our lives these days. So we just appreciate you being part of this community. And recently, some of you know, last Shop Night Live, we said we're going to announce, we're going to have a special announcement to the mailing list, and then we were intending on bringing it up tonight, but we sent out an email inviting people to what we're calling an epic weekend, and where we'd have a group of folks here, about a group of 20, and just have a nice experience. And we couldn't believe, but all those places were taken in less than 5 hours on Sunday. And then so we did another one. We put out another one for a month later, and all of those went in 5 hours. And we still had more on the waiting list. And so we thought, gosh, we don't want to hold people out. So we have one more we are going to offer, and we're making it available tomorrow morning, right?
At noontime-ish, we'll send out an email to our existing mailing list and let them know of the new third event dates.
Noontime on Eastern Coast?
Eastern Coast.
So, okay. East Coast time. Eastern Standard Time, right?
Eastern Standard.
All right, so noontime.
So if you're not on our mailing list and you want to know about that, there is a link in the description to go and sign up for our mailing list so that you can hear.
Yes, that's our
It is.
way. We want you on our mailing list. Why haven't you been on that?
Not the same as subscribing to YouTube. It's a mailing list. We don't barrage you with emails.
Right.
So
It actually gives you more insider of what's going on here. So we would love to have you come see us. And we're excited about those weekends. We're having special guests of furniture maker David Lamb, extraordinary artist and maker. He's going to be demonstrating and be with us for one afternoon and evening. And then Tim Coleman, another amazing craftsman. They all have great stories, which I'll be sharing some on that weekend. And I think you'll really love meeting them. So,
lots of great fun opportunities. Be in the live audience here for the Shop Night Live that first evening. Lots of great food, all kinds of fun stuff.
So we have that to be thankful for, and I just really appreciate everyone who's coming. Now we got to get the place ready, you know. Sort of like you invite all these people to your house, and you go, "Gosh, I got to clean my house now." Yeah. But
it's okay.
So anyway,
we are.
Yeah, as we are. I think I'll do a little organizing in here, just so everybody can fit easily. But anyway, I'm really appreciative of that, and you know that. Oh, I also am really appreciating the new Fine Woodworking magazine. It just came out yesterday or the day before, I forget.
Arrived here yesterday.
Yesterday, and the article of the chest of drawers in there, and much to my surprise, they've got this spot right here. Look, here's the cabinet on the cover of Fine Woodworking magazine.
We did not know that was happening.
The cover of the Rolling Stone, you know. But so I am really thankful for that. You know, I've met so many great people over there, and it's such an honor to be in this magazine. Like I remember just drooling over it in the 80s when I really realized for the first time there were people out there doing studio furniture work. And I've devoured most all the issues over the years, and Pug Moore gave me his set of Fine Woodworking magazines when he was getting rid of them, and it's just weird, you know, but it's really fun to be involved, and you realize what great people over there as well. So anyway, it's a great article. By the way, that chest of drawers, we are in the middle of a course. Actually, we're at the beginning. What? How many have we had so far? Two. We've only had 2 of 8, maybe 9 sessions. So if you want to get involved in that, our next session is this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live. You can chat in your questions, and you can get the full-size drawing for that very chest and walk you all the way through it. We have a blast, and I know some people watching now are a part of that course, so tell everybody how much fun you're having. Just kidding. You don't have to do anything. But
I'm having fun.
Yeah, you're having fun. Yeah. So anyway, it's not too late to get in on that. When you get in on the course, you have access to those videos and the previous ones on tape forever. As long as we last, or as long as you last.
As long as we're breathing.
Yeah, you get to do it. So you're probably going to get to building that chest, you know, sooner than that. All right.
At least under 12 years. That's kind of the standard here.
Yeah. So we're going to open it up for questions in a little bit, so be thinking if you have any questions for me or the camera lady.
We'll see.
Okay.
I don't think I have a lot to contribute. But
Oh, okay.
in the woodworking world, anyway.
All right, well, it doesn't have to be woodworking. You just heard her. So we are going to... but tonight, a lot of you know, tonight is the also the unveiling of the writing desk, the, what do we call it? The modern writing desk, which is one of our courses. So, since you're, oh, be sure to subscribe too. Come on. It doesn't cost you a thing. We really appreciate
Subscribe
it.
to the YouTube channel.
To YouTube channel, yeah. Just subscribe already and be part of it. All right, so I am going to show you.
We're so savvy in our techno social media.
All right, so a lot of you may be watching now.
It's so beautiful. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you are? That's pretty funny. All right, so a lot of you took that course that we just completed, like, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I had never actually totally finished that chest, but here it is. You want to get the camera on there?
I'm ready.
Ready? I put it on a pedestal so it'd be like Furniture Master worthy. Ooh.
Oh,
I should have had some
gosh,
music
I have
on.
not even seen it, you guys.
No, she hasn't. So I'm pretty psyched about it. I'm going to just put it at a little angle for you. But I'm really happy with how the two woods are complementary. You know, we've got the walnut legs and frame and the walnut pulls here that are custom made for this table. And the big leaf maple, which I had never used before. But I was over at Goose Bay here in Chichester. Little plug for Goose Bay. They're so good to me. And to you indirectly because they donate this wood and we get to see the beautiful material. And this is just amazing figured wood. It's got this incredible chatoyance. Is it too bright? Are you able to see it there? Mm-hmm. With the light and all? Cool. But it's got this golden color. I was anticipating maybe a little more of a white when I was thinking maple. But I love it. I think the golden color actually harmonizes, although it contrasts, it harmonizes a little nicer with the golden brown tones of the walnut. So pretty sweet. I'm really happy with it all around. I'm going to pick it up and just turn it around so you can see how it looks on the back. We've got those other inset panels.
Wow, I love that.
And look how, can you see how the panels are pillowed? They've got a little shaping to them and the pillowed ends. And then the legs, of course, have this nice graceful taper and a subtle line of beauty. If you were around for that Shop Night Live we had not long ago. And these nice little negative spaces. But, you know, there are a lot of shaped and curved lines on this piece. So it's nice to have some linear elements because it gives your eye a place to kind of relax or, you know, a baseline for everything else that's going on that's shapely, whatever. Because if you just make everything so curvy, you don't feel like the piece has any kind of bones to it. So the framework works well for that. But even that has a little pillowing on that. And then the drawer fronts themselves are pillowed. And you get to see how this drawer looks finished. So this is quarter sawn Eastern white pine. Beautiful white with a hard maple laminate edge on the bottom. So this drawer is so light, it's going to last as long as this table is cared for, I think. So it's not like I needed to put it there for tremendous wear or anything. I just got used to it from that shaker chest of drawers. That's one of the techniques we go through in that course. And I just love that little detail. Another thing we did in the course was we put these stops right in here, and we laminated a little piece of leather, some burgundy leather on the face of each stop so it hits there. If it didn't have the leather, it makes kind of a sharp cracking sound when the drawer meets the stop. But with the leather, just a quiet little thump. So those little things make a difference, you know? And here's that drawer bottom that we made our own plywood with that. This is maple as well to match, not that we were trying to match, but it does essentially match that hard maple runner. And we made our own custom plywood out of some 1/8" bending ply. And we made a video on Shop Night Live on making your own plywood. If you missed that, there you go. And then this nice little dovetailed corner that I wasn't sure if this maple was going to contrast that much with the white pine because it looked a lot whiter in the natural state, you know, but then it got more golden, and then of course the end grain always reads quite a bit deeper in color than the side grain. And so when I just wiped on shellac here, 2 thin coats of shellac, 1.5 pound cut. I sprayed on quite often, but I decided didn't take much time. I actually could get more shellac to penetrate into that end grain and to bring out that contrast more strongly, which I really like that look. It just oozes craftsmanship, doesn't it, when you open a drawer and you see dovetails like that. I mean, that's a nice little shot right there of a lot of design elements colliding right in this corner. You know, you've got the drawer, the open space, the leg, the pillow top, and even the top has this pillowed edge. And we've got this cutout around the leg, which I kind of fussed over. My initial design had it coming a little more linear around it, but I kind of I saw some other things where they had a little more rounded, and I felt like it worked a bit better because the margin is large enough. You really don't have to have it tight to the leg. It almost looks like if this were a pond or something and you have a reed coming up, that the ripples of water would be coming out and you'd have almost a rounded margin anyway. So it lends itself to almost create a rounded effect feeling with those legs coming up through. But
why haven't you ever used this kind of maple?
It's actually a West Coast maple, so it's not that available around here. I've never seen it in the lumber yards around here. So when I was mentioning to Goose Bay about this project, I already had all the walnut and the frames and all that. And I said, you know, I'm thinking of having a table that evokes the feeling of a cloud and has this cloud where the legs are coming up and piercing or breaking through the cloud. So you could sit at this desk and be reminded of that breakthrough you are right on the verge of. If you just sat down and just be quiet, it'll come. But, so I said that to them. I said, I'm just looking for something that feels a little like a cloud and like a whiter wood that really has some great figure to it. And you know, the usual thing that comes to mind around here is curly maple or bird's eye maple. But they said, you know, we've got some really great big leaf maple that came in, and it's got this quilted look to it. And I thought, wow, I would love to see that. And they said, you know, it's softer than regular maple, but you know, I find it's about the same hardness as soft maple, which is still pretty hard, and it makes a great top. So I'm very pleased with it. I think it's an awesome look. And if you're around here, they still have a good pile of it at Goose Bay, but you should call ahead because you never know. Somebody might have gone over there, or by the time this video gets out, you'll see somebody over there.
Can you show the pillowed top element, how that?
Yeah, sure. Let me show you.
Asking about that.
Who is?
Steve.
Steve. Yes, Steve. Let me show you. This is a piece of. This is the one I actually used to demonstrate while we were in the course, and I did one quadrant. So this corner is just flat right here. This is the underside. So you can see how flat it is right out to the edge.
Yeah, if you lift it up.
Can you see it better?
Yeah.
See that? So it's just a regular flat top, but we have this nice cutout, which using the template from the drawing to encircle the legs as it was built. But after I was done, I wanted to also give that a bit of a pillowing effect so that it would feel almost like it wasn't wood, like it was this softer, cloud-like pillowed surface. So this side shows you after it was pillowed. You can see there's a line. I make a guideline about an 1/8 inch down, and then another line about 1.25 inches in from the edge. And then using the spoke shave in the way that we did last Shop Night Live, I will come in and kind of very subtly break the edge and then gently lay the facets back in until they just imperceptibly disappear. And then card scrape, file, card scrape, and then sand so that you don't see the transition. And when you look at this table, you don't even at first notice what that treatment is. And I picked this up from Jerry Osgood and Ted Blatchley in the New Hampshire Furniture Masters. They did it on a lot of their work. And I've mentioned this before, but if you're new to hear me talk about the Furniture Masters, it's a great group in New Hampshire of about 25 members. And you can check out the work. Just look at the different portfolios by clicking on different names at the website furnituremasters.org. That's it, right? It's plural. Yeah, furnituremasters.org. So check out Ted Blatchley. He does a lot of this pillowing work. And so I enjoyed being inspired by that effect. No.
Are you thinking about a chair to make a match set?
Oh, I hadn't been, but that's a great suggestion. That would be, I usually don't like to make a chair so specific to one item. So when you're making a single chair, I'd probably be thinking of it as also a dining chair that fits with this. But that's a great suggestion. So I've got a new rocking chair design percolating here as well. And I also have a shaker rocker that is coming out in the not too distant future where I got to measure and make patterns from an actual shaker rocker at the Shaker Village right over here. So I'm excited to build that one as well. But isn't that neat how this color, when I saw it, I thought, wow, that's not really white, but it's got this really nice cream color. And then it goes to that when you just put natural oil varnish finish on there.
Did you talk at length at all about the way you finished the tops? I've got a question here about that. Bill.
Yeah, I used, for the table for the finish, on the top, I wanted this to be more durable. So I wanted to use an oil varnish of some type. Now, a lot of you know that my usual go-to is Waterlox Tung oil varnish. It's actually a little bit of a blend of tung oil. It's primarily tung oil, but then it has another resin in there that's a little harder. It might have 10% urethane or something with the tung oils. I'm not sure, but it's very low of the other resin. Tung oil is exceptionally water resistant, and it rubs out beautifully. And in order to rub out, what I mean by that is after you've done with the finish, it doesn't come out perfectly off of the brush or the wiping. It'll look pretty good, but you'll feel little dust nibs on there, and you might have some issues here and there. But you want to finish it and make it silky smooth and with a nice look to it. So you have to sand it or hit it with some steel wool or some kind of polish to change the sheen and soften it a little bit. Well, that Waterlox tung oil is exceptional at taking that kind of final rubbing out. This is actually even a more durable finish. So let me show you. This is the Waterlox can. This is actually for the satin finish. And for this big leaf maple, in order to get the maximum chatoyance and see deeply in there, you should start with the original Waterlox, which is a medium sheen. It's just going to be a clearer finish. This satin has some additives, some stearates in it that flatten the final sheen. And it actually inhibits a little bit in there. So if you're going to use any of this, it would only be on the last coat. All right. So that's the Waterlox. I didn't have that medium sheen, but I did have this Armor Seal, which is comparable to the Waterlox, but it's another oil varnish blend, but it's primarily urethane. And then it has other softer resins in there to combine with the urethane. So it's not all polyurethane, but it is primarily. So what does that get you? Well, it gets you a little harder finish and a finish that's even more durable than the Waterlox. On the negative side, it's a little harder to rub out and to get that gorgeous final effect. But it looks pretty darn good. And this right here, it's thin enough where I didn't have to thin it at all. A lot of times the Waterlox is a little heavier bodied, and I'll cut it by 10 to 20% with mineral spirits or paint thinner. So all you're doing is pour some in a jar and then add 10 to 20% of that amount and stir it up good, and you'll have the mix I usually use. This Armor Seal it's plenty thin. It's actually just right. I just wiped it on using a folded up paper towel. You could use a cotton rag or whatever. And this top here has 4 coats. I'm just wiping it on thin. And it goes on beautifully. You know, the first coat is going to saturate in. I had 3 on there and I thought I was done. And actually it was this morning. I thought I was done. I didn't want to do anything more to it. But there was some dry, very subtle dry streaky areas, and I thought, okay, 1 more, because I always try to go the minimum needed, because if you build up too much it starts to look cheesy. And so I get that 1 more on there, and I like it a lot. I haven't done the final rub out. I very lightly will go over it with like a 1500 grit paper just to knock off the dust nibs lightly, and I already did that, even though I put this coat on it like not even 12 hours ago. And then I will lightly burnish it with some fine steel wool, and then I'm using this white Scotch Brite pad to burnish it. And the final thing I do is burnish it with just paper towels, because they have an abrasive quality that's a little finer than this, and will brighten it up just a little. But doing that rub out is going to flatten the finish slightly, so it's not quite as shiny and harsh looking, and then it'll have a classier look. However, it'll still retain all that depth, and I'll just put on a furniture polish and have it. So when it comes to varnish top coats, this is going to give you a little more protective quality than the Tung oil. And so it was fun to try them both. I can feel the hardness factor here, okay, but this is an excellent finish too. You'd be as good to go with it, but you know, it's not quite as durable. So it's kind of like a toss-up, whichever you want. This is about, I should say, half the price of this, okay? So that might be another deciding factor. A can of this Armor Seal, a quart can, is about 20 bucks. About 40 bucks for one of these. So, but the original sheen, I think you can get about 30, and then the satin is up there higher. So,
how long between coats of the Armor Seal?
Well, it depends on the drying conditions. You know, on the can it says 24 hours, but I could tell it was fine. It was like I put one on yesterday. It was, anyway, it was only 12, 18 hours or less. And I lightly sanded it with 320, and it was powdering up nicely. And right now it feels really dry. And I put that coat on 10 hours ago. and it feels, was it 10? Yeah, and it feels very dry. It feels great, but it's not cured. These finishes tend not to reach what they say full properties till they're fully cured out for like 2 weeks. But they'll be fine, you know, to use in a few days.
Did you answer the question about whether the armor seal has a sheen? You did mention something.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. This one I was using is the semi-gloss, and even 4 coats of that does not look hazy. Very subtly softer. It's a softer look softer sheen than the gloss. The gloss is just, you know, it's just too much for a top like this. So the semi-gloss, even with 4 coats, it was a bit of an experiment. I wasn't sure how that would go.
Can it go over a gel stain?
Yeah, it can. I believe so. Let me double check. You know what? I haven't used this in a while, but
Did you talk about how you apply those seal coats? I think you did. You said
yeah, I
bag.
patted them on. I wiped them on. You can brush. I wouldn't spray. It's kind of wasteful, but I would just wipe it on. It's so easy if your project is smaller like that. The thing about gel stains, I'm almost certain it'll work. This is an oil-based gel stain. This is an oil-based varnish. So one of the issues you run into is making sure the gel stain is dry enough so when you go to wipe this on, it doesn't lift and smear this. So that's the only issue. Sometimes what I'll do is actually seal in the gel stain if you're using an oil-based gel stain, and you should do a test. You know, while you're building your project, just take, you know, a half an hour and prep a sample board and get your finish kind of schedule figured out early, so you don't have to figure it out on your workpiece. But take some scraps and see how it works out. If it is lifting, then what you can do is you can apply a wash coat of wax-free shellac on top of the gel stain, which will lock that in, kind of fry it in, as a guy used to call it. And then that'll be a barrier coat for good adhesion and no problems with the varnish going on top of the wax-free shellac.
Have you ever used the water-based armor seal? And if so, do
No.
you see a big difference? No.
No, I'm sorry, I haven't. But
This is,
most cases people I've talked to recently who have been using, they still prefer the richness of an oil base, but you'd have to do a side-by-side comparison for yourself to see how they compare. I haven't used them.
how did you finish the underside?
Of the top, the exact same way. So I was trying to keep a kind of a balanced skin of finish on this so it would stay pretty true, and I'm not worried about it going out of flat really, but just so that the moisture reacts to it evenly. So I wiped on actually 3 coats on the bottom. I would just wipe it on and then stay right there, I'll be right back. And then so I'd wipe it on the bottom, and then I have like 4 of these little triangles. I'd flip it over and rest it on these 4 triangles. So the bottom is up off the table and it's drying, and I could then wipe on the top and then just leave it. And those little spots never show. So the top ended up getting a 4th coat, which is fine. The bottom looked
Did you use any wood conditioner first?
plenty good. No. Really, you don't want to use wood conditioner here. Wood conditioner, what it does is it kind of puts a sizing, like an initial sealer on the wood. And you want that when you're trying to reduce penetration of the stain or the finish that you're applying. To bring out the full pop of a rich figured wood like this big, this is quilted. I mean, it's an amazing figure. If you have curly, quilted, bird's eye, whatever, or crotch figured wood, you want to allow maximum soaking in or penetration of the finish that you're using. So you don't want to put any kind of conditioner on there first. You're going to use your varnish, and you may even slightly thinning it down if it's not thin enough will get you a good soaking in, because it's going to go deep. Then with the successive coats, you're going to see that full, rich contrast and dancing play of light on that wild grain is going to really be enhanced. That's a good question.
Yeah. Can you talk about how the top is attached? Claude's asking.
Sure. Actually, I'll show you. I'll flip it over. This is one of the drawers. I'll get these out of there. I've got to take it out. I'm going to actually flip it over and show you.
Can you talk about where this is going while you're...
This is, for now, this is staying here. I don't have anything. I'm considering selling it, but I don't want to let it go yet because I want people to see it and experience it. Like people coming to the weekend, I'd like to have them see it here.
Are you going to make one out of the flame birch top?
Yes, I am going to make one out of the flame birch. I want to see it in the flame as well. The flame is a whiter wood, and it's got these wider waves, unlike curly. It's whiter, it's going to look a little more cloud-like, where, anyway, I can flip this upside down, and you can come right in here, and you can see here, we've got these pieces here lift the top off, see, by 3/4 of an inch here, so it gives the appearance of a slightly floating top there. And then I put some hand-cut pocket holes on the end here. I mean, you could use Craig jig or whatever, but I like that old school kind of hand-cut pocket hole. So there's 3 screws there, and then on one of these center dividers, there's 2 here, because these panels also act as the drawer guide. See that nice channel that the drawer runs in? And there's 3 more screw holes over here, and then 3 on the end. And then you notice the signature. You see that? I use a little, can you see it? I use a little engraver pen. It's not a fancy one, it's kind of rough, but that's how I sign everything. And you should sign your work too, because someday when it's in that museum, someone's going to say, I think this is one of their pieces, but I'm not sure.
Do you have a piece of the flame birch nearby?
Yeah, I do. Hold on a second.
Did you dye the secondary wood, Tom?
I put a little bit of, let's see, what did I do? Yeah, I put some glaze on that, some glazing stain. I didn't really dye it. I had initially sealed it. It was already this dark kind of poplar, so you can see the greenish tint. It was very green heartwood poplar, and it was fine enough, but I did put a little color on it, so it took a bit of the glazing tint, which went on the walnut as well. So the walnut had a sealer coat of shellac, then the same glaze, which was like a burnt umber Mohawk glaze, and then I put 3 more thin coats of shellac on that, and that got finally rubbed out, very lightly sanded with some 320, and then rubbed out to a soft sheen with the 4/0 steel wool, and then a brie wax, paste wax on the top of all the walnut. This here is the flame. You see that? See how much wider the bands are? Compared to this insane piece of big leaf maple. Both these pieces I got over there at Goose Bay. If you're around here, they have a lot of really nice flame birch right now. And they have the 8/4 too, like a really great bin of wide 8/4. So that's what you get with the flame birch. And this is crazy busy big leaf. Isn't that sweet? I mean, all of that would pop so much because those dark areas are actually like where the end grain is rising toward you. And it gives you like these little pools of water almost. this incredible look. Where these are these wider, almost like a real close-in view of curly maple. Curly maple, they're much tighter ripples, but, oh gosh, watch out for the dust.
Tom, why did you use the poplar instead of eastern pine?
I just wanted something darker under there for starters, and I had the poplar as a good secondary wood. At the time when I was making these out, I had that as a good secondary wood here in the shop, so that's what I used. You could use pine if you wanted to, but it worked well for this, so let me get it back.
Are the prices, have they increased right now on the wood?
I think they have. I can't say. I have a sweet deal where for doing this stuff, they donate the wood to the projects they like. They like the arrangement, and I like it too. So anyway, this is how it's going to look like when it's on the floor. Let's put it on the floor so you can see that. I put it on that riser so you'd get, that's how we do it in the fancy exhibits. The Furniture Masters, we put everything on a riser like that, and then we stand around in our dressier clothes and act like we're not
Around dust all day?
slobs most of the time. So I've got these numbered too. There's my 1, and I put a little chop mark of a 1 on that side. And my floor is super on that level, so I know that's all. But then you'll bring up your chair.
Well, this is going to ruin
I've got my
everything.
microphone. What?
That chair.
No, it's just my office chair out in the shop. Oh, would I get my laptop on here or that writing pad? It almost is too nice to work on.
A breakthrough's coming.
It's coming anytime now.
So Chuck says he has finishing your Craftsman rocker.
Here's what?
The
Craftsman rocker? Okay.
He says he's thinking of the Rubio monocoat. Have you any experience with that?
No, I don't, but if Wes is on, Wes, you have a lot of experience with that. Will you please tell us what you think of the Rubio monocoat? The
Wood Whisperer uses that too.
I'm still waiting to finish that, to work with that, but it looks pretty good. It's a type of wiping varnish, but I'm sorry, I don't have any direct experience with it. It's a big thing right now. I should.
Does the poplar, Ken's asking, does the poplar green tone eventually go brown?
Maybe. It does brown out somewhat, but you can usually still see a slight bit of the green. If I hadn't sealed it with a shellac, which I did, it would have taken more dark. But all I was trying to do was just darken it a bit, because the only place you see it is by looking in this negative space, and behind there you can kind of see the secondary wood, but it's so dark under there now, especially with that added glaze, that you don't even notice it's different than the walnut. But I didn't want to use walnut in there, and when you sit down and see this table, I didn't want that to come through. But I'm really pleased with how the pulls are. They're nicely sized for the table, and they feel great in your fingertip. And they have this sweet little play of curves going on.
We got a great picture of that for our Instagram. If you missed that.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, we don't ever really pump our Instagram account.
Yeah, it was this drawer actually.
Go and follow us there.
So it's pretty sweet, and this is. Let me show you where it came from. This drawing. This is one of the drawings that you get with the course, and so here's the table, and to get that leg shape, you have to make your template right from this drawing. And then here's the internal twin tenons, everything. It's a really super strong frame. And then this is a top view of the drawer. So there's the 1/2-inch side of the drawer. Here's the side view. There's the dovetail layout, just like we have here. And then You can see the drawer itself is the same as that outline right there with the pull here. And here's a side view of the pull. So all of this information is on this drawing. It's the first time I've ever made a Furniture Masters exhibit worthy piece and made a drawing to associate with it and shared it with people. So
there's actually 2 pages to the set. So
yeah, there's a top view that gives you a lot more information that you need on the frame and the internal parts, but I love it. I mean, this is just the beginning. I'm excited for a lot of new pieces to keep designing and building more pieces that I've been having stirring in my mind. But instead of loading in my van and delivering them to a client somewhere and then never having seen it again, or anyone, pretty much no one, I'm going to tell you the story of making them and letting you enjoy the process and make them yourself. But I won't be doing it in isolation anymore. We're kind of in this together, if you so choose to be. The doors are always open.
telling the story, that's what we meant with the epic woodworking, that kind of epic.
Yeah, an epic story, journey, life together. Adventurous, heroic story.
Steve's asking, how did you get involved in Fine Woodworking magazine, and how can a mere mortal like him get involved?
Of course. Yeah, you can submit articles to the editorial staff. They get a lot of submissions in there. I get involved, I got talking with them. One of their editors came up to a Furniture Masters event, over 10 years ago, and they knew of our group, and so they knew quite a few members. A number of us had put articles in. Some of you may have seen Garrett Hack. He's been a long-time member and a good friend in the Furniture Masters. Terry Moore, David Lamb. There have been other members who have also had articles. Probably, though, Garrett Hack is the most influence. And I talked to him a little bit about it, but I was always so busy building commissions, and I never submitted anything. They asked me once for my method of making some bracket feet for an 18th century chest. What was my approach? And I sent them some pictures and told them how, and didn't go anywhere. So I got rejected. An article came out, it was somebody else. They must have liked his method better. But it's fine. I had plenty to do. It wasn't until I got connected with that TV show, the PBS show, that when they were transitioning to me being the host after Tommy McDonald left the show, they wanted a magazine involved. And so they actually went down to Fine Woodworking Live, and I wasn't part of it then. This was one of the first years, and and they ended up talking more to me. I had been a guest on that show a number of times, so I ended up getting on the show, and the people, and that's when I first met all the people at Fine Woodworking. We had a nice little board meeting there in Boston at WGBH, and so some of them I knew from talking to, but never really met them face to face, and it just took off. And we started that first season, and some of my first articles were from pieces that first season, that only season so far. And but now we've been talking about, what new do you have? And so we have another plan for, some of you may have seen that low post, pencil post bed. That's got a good shot of being in there. Possibly an end table as a video series article. But yeah, lots of things. That's how I got involved there. But it's just submitting things, and that's how it happens.
Do you keep track of your time when you build pieces? Joel's asking.
Joel, I don't do very well with that because I've always kind of had a couple things going on. I know some friends of mine in the same life do pretty well. They start out, they get in there, got their little notebook, and they write their time and everything. I don't, but I could I usually have a pretty good sense of how long, because I know, how long the days I was out here, and then it's usually a push at the end. Not much different than it was even getting ready for this. So I have a pretty good idea, but now it's so different because I'm not building just one. Usually when I'm building to show, I have 3 to 4 tables going, or like with the Chest of Drawers series, for that video series and that article, I had 3 in different processes along the way, so I could shift to them. And when we did the TV show, it was the same, 3 to 4. You'd have one finished, then you have one ready to glue up, and then other parts to cut. So we shot that show in one day, always. So it was a good day, but I was ready with all the parts. So the pieces you see me cutting are not the ones obviously in the finished piece. It's all just kind of shifted and all right, let's move over to this one. That's why sometimes the joints would look like they magically fit. I'd be cutting a mortise and tenon on the table saw and just go, let's see how that one fit. After I cut it and go, oh, what do you know? It's perfect. Because we switched it out for the one that was perfect. But here you get the real thing. And in those live video courses, so much of it I'm doing, so all those little nuanced things and ways of approaching things that are things I'm thinking about, even the setups, you see that, and you see when it goes right and when it goes wrong. I mean, even with the course, I have to have some things ready that it'd be tedious for you to watch me do, but we always cover everything in depth there.
Dan's asking, what top coat would you put over ash ebonized with India ink for the contemporary round table specifically?
There I would go with, if you're talking about a top surface that's going to, well, that would be your base or the top. If you're talking about the top, I would put something that's going to be a little more durable, like a varnish, like the Tung varnish, or you could even use this. But if it's just the base, it's not going to get much wear. I would use shellac. It's awesome. It's super easy, and I showed that in a number of cases. But the base of this table is all shellac. I finished all of the big leaf maple though with that. What do they call it again? Armor seal. So even the panels all around, I used armor seal. And one of the last things I did after all the walnut was rubbed out is I put the panels and glued them in. The cleats were already preset, so I just pressed in the panel and just put on a clamp for a few minutes.
You said yes, the base.
Yeah, I would go with shellac. It's so friendly and easy to use. And you get like 3 coats on there, and then you're going to rub it out with fine steel wool, a little wax. It'll look amazing.
Gary would like to see the top and how did you book match that, or how he wants to see
who wants to?
Gary, the seam.
Oh yeah, Gary. There's one seam on this. It's pretty hard to hide it on a figured wood like this. So you can see right here.
Can you turn it maybe this way? Thank you.
So
Yeah,
you can see it change a little down here, but when you're looking at it from the front, it's hard to pick it up. With wood like this, a lot of times I talk about this in gluing up panels. We just went over this in the Chest of Drawers course because there's a lot of panels for that. But if you book match on a straight grain wood, sometimes it'll look perfect. But other times if the grain is sloping up the surface, when you book match, you've changed the orientation of the fibers as they're rising out of the surface. So they will actually reflect light in a way that will make it obvious, the glue joint, even though the grain might look very similar on the edge. So a lot of times, if I can get away with it and it looks like a good match, I'll slip match, or just bring the 2 pieces alongside each other. So the nice thing about this is that it's from one board. It's, one long board, wide enough to only have one glue joint. That's, I feel like, other than having one wide board, which pretty hard to find. You might, though, and it looks outstanding to have a singular plank. You know, that's where getting wide veneer can be a big wow factor. But with all the shaping of this edge, I wanted to go with solid wood, so it would have that factor. Hope that answers the question.
Stuart's asking how you go about figuring out what price you will put on a piece of furniture when you put it up for sale.
Well, when I was working in the custom furniture world, you know, you try to figure out as much time as it's going to take, obviously, and your overhead and what you need to bill out at an hour and all that, and then you have cost of materials, all that time factored in, and then add some kind of profit margin, and there you go. So, but you know what?
It's easy, but it's not.
No,
it's not.
It's hard because most of those designs were one of a kind, and they were originals. Very rarely did people come to me and say, here's the plan that some designer gave me, can you build this? It was usually coming to get me to design something for the space, because maybe like something they had seen me make before. So it was really enjoyable, but unpredictable in a lot of ways, because you're doing new things all the time, and you're not sure how long it's going to take. Things can go wrong, so you have to pad that, you know, to protect you. If you want to see some values, I mean, go look at Thomas Moser Furniture. It's THOS, Toss Moser Furniture.com, and that gives you a good idea. Like, that's more of a production setting. Like, they're in a production where the things are dovetailed and made nicely, but there's a lot more machine-based joinery there. And so I'm not even doing that. So you'd see like a chest of drawers in there, like that shaker chest of drawers. They sell an equivalent in walnut for like $9,000. And when you factor the time and the materials and everything, you can see why it costs close to that. So how much do you sell your work for? Whatever people will pay you for it. I mean, that's kind of the value, because a lot of it is what we do with the Furniture Masters is try to impress upon people how this is like a personal expression, much like an artist paints a painting or a musician writes a song. There's an art added value quality to it as well. If you can convince people there is, and they believe it, you know. I mean, it's really there, but a lot of it is what's inside of you and what you project the value in a way. So if you feel kind of like this pall over yourself, like, oh, I'm never worth it, which a lot of makers, and I even struggle with, like, what is my value? I can't charge someone that much for it. But there are a lot of people out there, and thank God for people who like to collect art, because they wouldn't, where would the great art be commissioned? You need people who believe in artists and want to fund the makers, you know, whatever craft it is, musicians or painters, you know. So, you know, when you see those people at the craft shows, if you can possibly buy something, it's a great investment, you know. I mean, maybe not you'll ever get paid, but you'll have things in your home that have way more character and life and added value to you look around your house, you smile a little bit, because that was the thing. I knew these people, you know, and they were here in the shop. They heard me talk about a plank that I had been sitting on for a while, which many times would germinate a project. So even like these things, you know, sometimes I would see an exciting plank and I'd go, wow, I just have to buy that. I buy it, and I could call a client and say, you wouldn't believe what I have right now. I have this incredible piece of material, and I'd send pictures or whatever, or I found this, and they would get excited. I made some very early videos called Barn Beam Bed, and it was about these chestnut beams that I found that this guy had, and I went over his place, and he was selling these beams, and I called the client, and I said, hey, I have this unbelievable chestnut, the in beams that I can resaw, and so I designed and made a bed for them that was, it's a woven texture. It's one of the things I'm really excited. I'm going to use this technique and show it to you at some point, but not tonight.
That's a big part of being in woodworking, is pricing your work, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a head game. So Lupe is asking, how does the expansion and contraction of the wood work with a highly figured material like that?
Very similar, Lupe. It's very similar. It's more about how the growth rings are oriented, like whether it's a flat sawn or a quarter sawn piece of wood. This is pretty much, it's got some plain sawn over here, but it's going to move very similarly to regular wood, given the figure. If it was crotch figure, then you have basically the separation of a tree, and you've got kind of this wild material in that section that may perform differently than the straight grain above it. But here, this is just a regular plank of wood that has this incredible mottled figure on it. So it's much like bird's eye or curly maple would act. It's just got an intense figure on the plank, so it's very similar. But when I built the table, it accommodates for that as well. I didn't mention it, but those 3 holes underneath, altogether, they're only separated by about 12, 14 inches, maybe, not even, no, less than that. And I reamed out the outer holes a little bit so that the screws are in there, and they can actually, if the top contracts or expands slightly seasonally, it'll move in that little bit of play and not be affected at all. So that's no issue on this piece.
Okay, Yossi has a question about the Adirondack. She says, I'm sorry. Speaking of the show, Rough Cut, the Adirondack chair, you cut the bridle joints for the arms on your Felder saw. That saw has a larger blade than the standard 10-inch blade. A 10-inch blade isn't large enough to cut the joint. I don't remember exactly how I solved the problem, but I know it wasn't a great solution. Any suggestions on how to cut it without the Felder?
I actually did that cut on my regular table saw. Let's see. Gosh, that's a good question. I'm sorry. I'm trying to punch up how I did it.
Yeah, see, we can look it up on the video and refresh Tom's memory.
Yeah, you can write me an email, so I remember to answer you, but I'm trying to remember. Because I also made that I made that chair in a course. I made a full video course here in the shop, and I know I used my Powermatic because I wasn't having to use the Felder. Like sometimes we didn't have to use the Felder for every action, but they were a sponsor of the show. So sometimes I was trying to find creative ways to use that saw, and I knew that it was a little foreign, literally, to most American woodworkers and shops that had the traditional cabinet saw that we know, but the slider has a lot of advantages, and I can see why they're much more common in Europe. But I know that that's possible, and I'll be happy to answer you. I think the only maximum amount that joint had to be was 3 inches deep. Actually, it's 3 1/4. And my saw goes up 3 to 3. On a 10-inch table saw, you can get 3-inch rise above the table, even a touch more. And I think all it required was a tiny bit of a chiseling to a line to get the full depth, and then making the overlap, and then the shape is cut. So it's not that, I think yeah, I know it can work.
Mark's asking for a panel that inserts into a groove to allow for wood movement. What is the sequence for finishing it and the frame that it installs in?
Oh, that's a good question, Mark. That's always an issue because you don't want the finish line to show up because you know that panel is going to contract and expand over time, and you just don't want that to be exposed. So it's a tough one because what I usually do is I don't want, if you're doing it in the summertime, you know that panel is expanded quite a lot, and it's just at its widest point because there's going to be a lot of humidity in the air and that panel is expanding across the joint. If you did all your finishing while it was in the frame, in the wintertime that panel is going to shrink, and whatever finish you applied, you're going to see the negative or the bare wood. So usually I like to pre-finish that edge that's going to be buried in there, or I'll at least stain it and put a primer coat on there, even if it's a line, and then assemble and then finish the whole thing so that if it does pull away, it's pretty hard to pick it up. It's tricky because what can you do? I mean, the wood's going to move, and you want to do that final finish all together. You know, otherwise you'd have to totally finish the center panel, glue it up, and then you're going to have some things, you don't want to damage that finish. So I would partially finish the center panel, those edges on the side grain prior to glue up, and get some shellac on them or something so I got good color and some finish on there, and then I go through the process of the finishing. And if it does pull open, it's harder to see seasonally.
Okay, Tony's asking if you flip match the top boards, can you still hand plane the glued up top?
Yes, but that's one of those issues that I was mentioning. Why I like to slip match when possible, because when you do book match, did they say slip match or flip? Flip meaning book. Well, whatever you mean by that, I think you mean book match. I was talking about a slip match. When you slip match, you're just cutting the plank and making the glue joint so that the boards are still in the same direction, but the same edge is not the joint. You get the right edge joins to the left edge, whatever. And if you get a good glue joint, that looks great. And most often, you're going to be hand planing with the grain right across the glue joint. It's when you book match, or you come around and you bring it around that way, or if you book match consecutive boards, that quite often you're going to get a reversal. But yeah, you hand plane. What I often do is when I get to the joint, you change direction with your hand planing, and then card scrape and sand. That's always a good indication, though, that your glue joint is going to reflect light differently across it, and it's going to show up, like I mentioned earlier. You're going to get a reflective variance across the glue joint. So the light, as it hits the boards, the one that has the grain raising is going to read slightly darker because you're seeing into the ends of the fibers a little bit. The other one's bouncing more light, and it looks lighter. And then as you turn the table around, it's going to reverse. So that's what I was talking about with that.
Dennis is asking, if you are making a waterfall desk and you have boards that are 1 3/4 inch thick that need to be glued up, would you recommend dominoes for strength, or is it just gluing okay?
1 1/2 thick. It's
1
more
3/4 thick.
1 3/4. You don't need to use dominoes to get good solid glue joints. The glue is tremendously strong by itself. However, it eases as far as the alignment of the boards when you're gluing up. You don't have to worry about messing around aligning them. It does add strength. So most times when I decide whether or not to put in a domino or a biscuit, it has to do more with the kind of grain. If it's wild figure, or I feel like the end grain is diving into the joint, or it's like crotch figure or something, it doesn't happen that often, but I will put some added splines or dominoes or biscuits to reinforce that joint. But if you have straight side grain and you're able to set that up so you got a really good glue joint, you're going to need heavier clamp pressure for thicker planks to pull that joint up. That's one of the main factors. And reverse your clamps top and bottom to get full pressure across that. It's like a wide glue joint, so you want to make sure you're distributing good pressure. But if you prepare that and pull it up, do a test dry, and you see that tight, you're going to get a beautiful glue bond stronger than the fibers to themselves. It's just, if it was wild figure, sometimes that can get weird with moisture content and all that and crack open. But if it's straight, I would have no worries about glue. Just glue is enough.
Steve's asking if you would consider building a project with hand tools only and not using any modern machinery.
Never. Yeah, Steve, that would be a fun project, like a little table or something like that. But it would be a fun exercise to do. I'm probably going to do something like that because I want to do some courses for kids, but there again, you have some challenges with just skills, because it takes longer to get used to using some hand tools over others, and what techniques you use to join. It's mainly the joinery is where it gets a little tricky, and you have to be good with a hand plane and all that. So yeah, I like using the mixed method where you use some machines, but to do the bulwark, But yeah, that's a fun project.
Titebond 3 favorite glue?
I would say so. Yeah, right now I use it most commonly because it performs or works practically just like yellow glue. It gives you a little more open time, and it's waterproof if you're using it outside. And I have very little issues with ever seeing the glue seam or anything like that. So, I mean, this is Titebond 3 on a white wood, and it's invisible.
We had a question earlier about our kids. Has anybody taken up the trade?
Oh, no. But actually in the front of the Fine Woodworking, where they have the little blurbs of the descriptions of the different contributors, for the first time ever, I said something about the kids and the camera lady. And we said that all 3 kids are in creative pursuits. Our youngest is a graphic artist and is in Nashville, and the other 2 are both in the music world, musicians and writers, and one is in Nashville and the other is in Los Angeles, and he produces music out there as well.
He's a software engineer by day,
yeah,
and a producer by night.
Yeah, half-time, but yeah, they're all creative. But no, I didn't. All we ever made were like school projects or something fun to play with, or weapons like swords, and what else? Cars and guns. All those good things
with no bullets.
And tables. They really seem to appreciate it now, though. Like, for the first time, I gave them all like one of those little round tables at Christmas time, and they were all like really happy. So that felt good. I mean, if I did that when they were younger, they would have thought, "What am I going to do with this? I can't shoot anybody with this."
Yeah.
Sorry.
There was a question very early on. How do I find a good wife? How does a good woodworker? Let me ask you the question correctly.
This is getting weird.
I don't know how this is going to put you on the spot. While I'm looking for this, Chris asked about classes. We aren't doing a typical class platform this summer. We're doing what we're calling epic weekends. And Chris, I know you're on our mailing list, so you should be getting word about that there. How does a woodworker meet a good wife? The Moonlight Craftsman wants to know.
Oh, gosh.
Be careful how you answer this. No, kidding.
I guess like everybody meets a good wife. You got to go to the right places,
He wasn't a woodworker when we got married. When we were, not a professional.
Wait, is this the wife saying this? He wasn't a woodworker? Oh,
Well,
I wasn't a woodworker.
I guess
Oh,
I'm
you're talking
assuming-
about me.
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Oh.
I guess I'm assuming he's saying that you are an expert at this decision
Oh, no, sorry.
ability. I really shouldn't put us into that question.
I think I'm an expert at picking a good wife.
At a mill, Gary says. Yeah, there you go.
But I'm not, no, you got to find somebody, I would find somebody who has some adventurous spirit and is all in, and they have to believe in you too, you know, and if you have a heart for that creative kind of pursuit, you've got to have somebody who is all in, because, you know, there's a lot of sacrifices with any kind of occupation like that early on, and that's why a lot of makers will supplement with teaching. You know, I did that here and there. I would teach courses, but it was primarily custom furniture work, and there was always enough work. Being associated with other good makers and hanging around with people who did well with pricing their work and picking their brain, that helps a lot, because you have to be good at the business side to make it work. You have to be able to price the work, and you have to be able to market it well. That's probably even a bigger thing. And now with social media and all the options there, just getting it in front of the right people and presenting it in the right way and having that belief and informing people about why this piece is so different than a piece you would buy off the, you know, discount furniture mart floor. You know, it's just a totally different animal. So that's a lot. But yeah, that'll help the wife stay with you. But yeah, you got to be in it together. I don't know. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You got to be in it together. So.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm just answering some questions here.
Okay. We got a lot of questions.
Okay, I think that is all the questions.
Okay, great. I thought people might get tired of this format, but I'm curious how people felt about this format every now and then, you know, that we didn't actually do something and just did questions. But anyway.
I think I got all the questions. If I missed somebody's question, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much again. If you do, remember, like this content and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please consider doing that. I mean, why not? And also, we've got our Go Deeper platform at epicwoodworking.com. If you get on our mailing list, you'll hear about new events that we're going to announce tomorrow at noontime, Eastern Standard Time, and all of the courses and projects that just keep growing, like this modern writing desk and the Shaker chest of drawers. That is the ongoing course. I'd love to have you be a part of that as well. You can check that out on.
Yeah, get on the mailing list if you're not already on there. We'd love to stay in touch.
So thanks so much once again for spending some time with us here in the shop in Canterbury, New Hampshire.
Celebrating with us.
And celebrating these milestones. We are really thankful for you. Everybody, until next time, I'll see you right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.
You guys are wonderful, so appreciate you.